Please welcome tonight's honored APA Fellows.
Tonight we celebrate APA Fellows. Fellows are the lifeblood of APA membership. You are psychiatry's top leaders, thinkers, and advocates. APA Distinguished Fellowship means more than filling out a form and putting in your time. It means you've gone the extra mile to demonstrate excellence in leadership. It means you've publicly demonstrated your commitment to improving both the field of psychiatry and to changing patients' lives for the better. If you are an APA Distinguished Fellow, you are someone who has had an impact on psychiatry, whether it's through research, service, or affecting change. You're also a stalwart in your community, being recognized for your volunteer service, social responsibility, and humanitarian concerns. Life Fellows and 50-year members are our most loyal core members. They have supported APA through the years and made our field stronger. International Fellows and International Distinguished Fellows represent the strength of APA and psychiatry's presence around the globe. Many of our new APA Fellows and International Fellows are just starting out their career. You are the future of our profession. It's amazing to think of all the work that each of you APA Fellows are doing around the world every day, one patient, one study, one conversation at a time. This convocation is to honor all of you. Congratulations.
Please welcome to the stage APA President, Dr. Teresa Miskimen Rivera.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Miskimen Rivera, President of the American Psychiatric Association, and it is my distinct honor to call to order APA's 70th Convocation of Distinguished Fellows. It is my favorite part of the annual meeting. So this annual ceremony that honors our colleagues' contributions to improving the lives of people with mental illness and advancing mental wellness. I am honored to be here and humbled by our distinguished fellows' accomplishments. Before we begin our ceremony, I would like to welcome Dr. Mark Rappaport to his APA presidency, which officially begins Wednesday at the close of this meeting. Mark, I know you have an exciting year ahead, and I look forward to seeing what you will accomplish. And now, I am pleased to announce that your first order of business is to begin the evening with the induction of the distinguished fellows of our dear association, and then to induct our distinguished life fellows. And now, please welcome Dr. Mark Rappaport.
Thank you, Teresa, and good evening it's wonderful to see all of you. In a moment, we're going to begin the induction of our distinguished fellows, but please, first allow me to underscore the meaning of the distinction. And by the way, if you watch me read this, you're going to also understand what dyslexia is like, because I'm dyslexic. Each one of you has been selected for your exceptional contributions to our field of psychiatry. And among you are the top teachers, researchers, dedicated volunteers in your community. And those of you who really have exemplified taking care of people, clinical excellence. Your colleagues in your district branches and the American Psychiatric Association have reviewed your applications and selected you for this honor. And let me tell you, it really is an honor. You deserve this. Now we will induct the 93 Distinguished Fellows and celebrate the 42 Distinguished Life Fellows. Will all these Distinguished Fellows and Distinguished Life Fellows who have not taken part of the oath before, please rise. Thank you for doing so. Distinguished Fellows, you are aware that the objectives of our association are to improve the prevention of psychiatric illness, to improve access and treatment, and to foster recovery for those with psychiatric disorders. In addition, our association strives to promote research and professional education in psychiatry and all other fields of mental disorders, to advance the standards of psychiatry and psychiatric services and facilities, to collaborate with our colleagues to advance the medical, psychological, social, and legal understanding of mental health and mental illness, and to promote the well-being of mental health for all persons. Knowing these objectives, do you voluntarily accept the title of Distinguished Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association and pledge to work towards its objectives to the utmost of your ability? You do. Good. If not, adios. Now, if you will please join me as I attempt to lead you in the pledge. I will faithfully dedicate myself above all to the welfare of my patients, to maintain the dignity of my profession and the practice of medicine, to supplement my own judgment with wisdom and counsel of specialists in fields, settings, and cultures other than my own, to render assistance willingly to my own colleagues, to be generous in giving professional aid to those who need it, to enhance my knowledge by continuing study, by attendance at meetings of my professional colleagues, by association with physicians of eminence, and by freely exchanging experience and opinion with my colleagues. I further pledge to avoid commercialism and inequity in my professional life, to refrain from seeking the public eye for self-aggrandizement, to set fees commensurate with my services and adjust them to the circumstances of my patients, and to avoid any financial or discriminatory practices, whatever that might debase my profession. We ended the pledge. Thank you. Be it therefore known to all concerned, your colleagues have assessed your scientific accomplishments, your dedication to our profession, and your contributions to the public good. They have judged your qualifications to be excellent, that they have recommended that you for advancement to Distinguished Fellow, the highest membership status that our APA confers. This convocation is a celebration of your achievements. Your presence here signifies your acceptance of this honor and the lifetime obligation it entails. It's our great pleasure to pronounce each of you a Distinguished Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association, and to wish you ongoing success as you continue in your new capacity to advance the science of the brain and the mind and the welfare of humankind. Congratulations to all of you. You may be seated. However, it's time at the end of this convocation for you to celebrate. And celebrate with those you love. Please do. Congratulations. Distinguished Life Fellows embody the APA values. You've already been selected by your colleagues for the highest honor the APA confers upon its members. And now, you've remained loyal to the APA for 30 years. On behalf of the entire organization, I thank you for your leadership and inspiration and for being our friends and mentors for all these years. I am honored to pronounce you Distinguished Life Fellows of our association. And I'm really pleased to know that you're all in good health, to have made it this long. Please be seated. Thank you all. I look forward to serving you as your next president, and it is now my pleasure to reintroduce Teresa, Dr. Miskimen Rivera, who will serve to lead the rest of this. Teresa.
Thank you, Dr. Rappaport, and congratulations to our distinguished fellows and our distinguished live fellows. Another round of applause. And now I am so pleased to introduce our new fellows. Achieving fellow status within the American Psychiatric Association is an honor that signifies dedication of the work that you are doing in psychiatry and the allegiance to our profession. Each individual that we are elevating to this status tonight has been recognized by their colleagues in the association for their commitment and collegiality in psychiatry. I now ask that our 222 colleagues who are being inducted as fellows this evening, please stand now. Please join me in congratulating them. Thank you, and please be seated. Next, we recognize our Life Fellows who have the same distinction as the APA Fellows and have also maintained their membership for 30 years. I will now invite our 131 new Life and Retired Fellows to please stand. There we go. And please join me in a round of applause to recognize them. Congratulations. Please be seated. The American Psychiatric Association has members in over 100 countries. Our international membership creates a truly global community of psychiatrists committed to the lively and productive exchange of scientific evidence in the care of persons with mental illness. APA International Fellows and Distinguished Fellows exemplify these virtues and service to our patients. I now invite our 31 new International Fellows and 8 International Distinguished Fellows to please stand and be recognized now. Please be seated. The next group of individuals that we honor tonight have been loyal to the APA as members for 50 years, having joined the APA in 1975. I now call upon our 14 new 50-year-old members to stand and be recognized. I know you're out there. Thank you, and congratulations to your lifetime commitment to psychiatry. You may be seated. Yes, thank you. I would next like to recognize and acknowledge this tireless work of the APA Membership Committee, shared by our very own Dr. Tanuja Gandhi. Dr. Gandhi, please rise. Thanks to you and the members of your committee for your outstanding efforts to grow our association, and now to more than 40,400 members this year. Thank you, Dr. Gandhi, and your membership committee. I'm now pleased to announce the recipients of the Special Presidential Commendations. These individuals have exemplified leadership on behalf of science, health, and psychiatry. Please, would you all come to the stage at this point, and I'm going to start with Dr. Francis Liu. Please join me at the podium. Dr. Liu, you have shaped our organization by demonstrating outstanding leadership over decades of involvement in the American Psychiatric Association, and your contributions to cultural psychiatry and to our understanding of the relationship between psychiatry and spirituality have distinguished you as a pioneer. You have been a mentor for so many of us. You have an enormous and beautiful legacy, and it is my honor to present you tonight with this commendation. Congratulations, Dr. Liu. Our next recipient is Dr. Kenneth Bush. Dr. Bush is a seasoned citizen advisor whose efforts to advance health policy legislation have created seismic change for individuals with mental health needs. His steadfast commitment to advocacy is a credit to American psychiatry. Unfortunately, Dr. Bush was unable to come here in person to accept this much-deserved award, but we will definitely get it to him. Please make sure that we are applauding then for Dr. Bush. Dr. Monica Taylor-Deser, please join me at the podium. Dr. Taylor-Deser, as an advocate, community psychiatrist, mentor, and member of the American Psychiatric Foundation Board of Directors, your career has reflected a deep commitment to advancing equitable mental health care for all. It is a privilege to work alongside you to strengthen workforce diversity and expand access to care. It is my distinct honor to present you with this commendation. Congratulations, Dr. Taylor-Deser. Dr. Ruby Castilla-Puentes, please join me at the podium. Dr. Puentes, you are a champion for women in psychiatry, a scientist and an advocate for Hispanic mental health. Your work has advanced culturally responsive care, expanded awareness of mental health disparities, and strengthened efforts to improve access and equity in mental health care. It is my distinct honor to present you with this commendation. Congratulations, Dr. Puentes. And please, just another round of applause for these exemplary psychiatrists. And tonight, I am also very pleased to present the Distinguished Service Awards established by our Board of Trustees in 1964 to honor individuals who have contributed exceptional meritorious service to the field of psychiatry and the American Psychiatric Association. With our Distinguished Service awardees, please join me on the stage as I call on you. I'm going to start off and honoring Dr. Aves Aftab. Please join me at the podium, Dr. Aftab. It is my honor to present you with this Distinguished Service Award in recognition of your advancement of pluralistic psychiatry and your development of philosophical perspectives on the field. Congratulations, Dr. Aftab. And now with Dr. Ron Bailey, please join me at the podium. Dr. Bailey, in recognition of your exceptional commitment to resourcing vulnerable groups and your unwavering work ethic in academic medicine, it is my honor to present you with this APA Distinguished Service Award. Congratulations, Dr. Bailey. Congratulations to you both on this tremendous accomplishment. And of course, let's give them another round of applause. And now, I would like to invite really the person who is at the center of this program tonight in terms of our annual meeting. Please, Dr. Sofia Mata, join me at the podium. Dr. Mata, it has been months and months and months of planning, of sweating, of going over all the things that you had to do to herd the cats of your committee. What a fantastic job you have done. And this year's scientific program helped bring to life this engaging and forward-looking program centered on the theme of advancing our psychiatric workforce. It is my honor to present you with the Scientific Committee Chair Award in recognition for your outstanding leadership and service that every single person here will be able to get back home with more medical knowledge based on the science. And thank you and your committee for this amazing work. Thank you, Dr. Mata. Please join me now in welcoming the American Psychiatric Association CEO and Medical Director, Dr. Marquita Wills, to the stage. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, everyone. Such an honor to be here with you all today at this momentous moment in milestone in your career. And now it is my absolute privilege to introduce today's speaker, a nationally respected leader in public health and a powerful advocate for human connection and well-being. Dr. Vivek Murthy is both the 19th and 21st Surgeon General of the United States, the first in history to be appointed twice. A physician, best-selling author, and trusted advisor to presidents, business leaders, and global organizations, he has shaped national conversations on mental health, workplace well-being, health misinformation and disinformation, the impact of technology on health, and the epidemic of loneliness, topics that are all near and dear to our hearts. Dr. Murthy also co-chaired the White House COVID-19 Task Force, wrote the New York Times bestseller Together, and launched initiatives like the Surgeon General's Recipes for Connection and the podcast House Calls. He's also advised companies like Netflix and Airbnb and serves on several national boards. A Harvard and Yale-trained physician, Dr. Murthy has cared for thousands of patients, trained future doctors, and conducted research in vaccine development, and in expanding clinical trial participation for women and those in minoritized communities. He brings that deep medical expertise to his work as a national leader who understands both science and the human spirit. Dr. Murthy is also a proud father, a percussionist in South Indian classical music, and, as millions have seen in his viral Bon Appetit video, a mango enthusiast. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Vivek Murthy. So it is such an honor to have you here at our annual Psychiatric Association annual meeting here in San Francisco. Thank you. I know you are called upon by many audiences, but we are so delighted to have you here address our newly convocated fellows.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We were just talking backstage, which I will share with all of you, that for me, when I was in office, and now as well, I am blessed to have the opportunity to speak to many different audiences. But it's a special privilege for me to be with fellow clinicians, because I feel like I'm with my people. So thank you for the chance to come home. Appreciate that.
So I think I want to first start off by thanking you and expressing gratitude for elevating the national conversation on mental health, even before it became as popular to be thinking about mental health. And that's always been...
Thank you so much.
One of your core key priorities, not a side issue, but front and center you've put that. Why did you do that? Why is mental health an area, a passion of yours?
I could tell you that it's because of my own struggles with mental health when I was a kid, and that would be true. I could also tell you that it's because, as a clinician, as an internist, I saw many of my patients also struggling with mental health concerns, and that would be true as well. But the thing that really pushed me over into making it a priority when I was Surgeon General was what I was seeing all over the country when I traveled. One of the great joys and blessings of serving was having a chance to meet people in so many parts of our country, small towns and big cities, people who were older, who were younger, people who were rich, people who didn't have much resource, all kinds of folks. And it helped me understand that what I had struggled with in my own life, what I was seeing in the lives of my patients, these were not anomalies, but these were far more common all across the country. And when people would come and share some of their struggles, it was often with a little bit of shame. It was often in a voice that was a little bit quieter. They would often talk about it, not in front of the whole audience, but afterward. They would come up to me and whisper, sometimes about these struggles. But it was very clear, especially with parents, as I saw parents worrying about the mental health struggles of their kids, that this is fundamentally impacting our lives in a much more profound way than I think the public and certainly policymakers understood. And that's what I experienced during my first term as Surgeon General. And then in between, when I was a private citizen, and the pandemic happened. And then in March of 2020, like when things were just accelerating here in the United States, or at least when we realized things were accelerating. I think they were probably accelerating before that. Then Vice President Biden, he was not in office, but he reached out and asked if I would start briefing him daily on COVID, because it was changing rapidly and he wanted to understand what was happening. So I started doing that, and these conversations, which were slated for half an hour, would routinely extend to an hour or an hour and a half. Me sometimes just wondering, are his advisors really pissed off at me because I'm taking him away from his other meetings? But they would often say, no, he'll go where he wants to go, and increasingly our conversations became not just about COVID in terms of its biology, its epidemiology, the progress on therapeutics and testing, but they started to shift more and more toward mental health. Because we realized that both of us were concerned about the mental health fallout from the pandemic. And so I wasn't planning to come back to government at that point. But sometime later that year, he said to me in one of our briefings, he said, if I have the privilege of being able to serve the country again, we have to tackle this pandemic together. And that's when I went to my wife and I said, I think he might ask us to come back. And there's a whole conversation we had, my wife and I, which I can tell you about at some point if you're interested in this conversation. But one of the things that was front and center of my mind is I said, if I have the privilege of coming back and serving, one of the issues I really do want to focus on in a much more pointed and impactful way is mental health, because it was a challenge before COVID. It's become more of a challenge since COVID. But I worry that our understanding, not just of how widespread the challenge is, but what's driving our mental health concerns, is not as developed as it needs to be, particularly among people who hold the power to craft laws, to drive funding to issues, to shape policy as well as clinical practice. And so that's why I chose to focus on mental health, because to me, mental health is the fuel that allows us to show up in life, in our families, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our neighborhoods. And if that fuel line is pinched off, it affects everything else, right? And people intuitively know this when you talk to them about it. They know, for example, that if they're struggling with serious depression, or if they're struggling with the acute stress of having a child who is sick, that impacts how they show up at work, right? We all know that, we see that, yet somehow we still treat mental health as something that is off to the side, something that people should just deal with on their own, something that doesn't necessarily have to or should affect the rest of their lives. So I'm grateful to see a shift over these last few years in how our country, how the press, how policymakers have all started to really think more deeply and intentionally about mental health. We have a lot more work to do, no doubt. But this is an essential issue, and it's why I'm so grateful, honestly, for all of you and for the work that you as individuals at APA has been doing, because you, of course, recognize the importance of mental health long before most people woke up to it. But this is a time where I think your voices, your perspectives, your skills are actually going to be more needed than ever, because more and more people are awake and are looking for solutions. We're trying to understand what are the origins of these struggles and what can we do about it.
in no small part to your effort, so thank you for that. So clicking down one more level, loneliness. You've shown a spotlight on loneliness and social connection, which many people weren't talking about at all. What role can you offer to us as psychiatrists and mental health practitioners in helping folks rebuild real connections, not just virtual ones, but real connections in our communities across the country?
People are so starved for authentic human connection right now, not just in America, but in so many countries around the world. I was just in Denmark at a conference on artificial intelligence and youth well-being. And of all the topics that we talked about there, the one that I got the most comments on from young people, from the leaders of countries in the European Union, from leaders of organizations, people across the age spectrum, was actually about this issue of loneliness and isolation. It's hitting people very, very deeply in very personal ways. But many people don't talk about that. You know, there's still this notion, which I felt deeply. I remember when I went to college, and as an introvert, you go to college freshman year, far from home. One of the hardest things is, how do you meet people, make friends, like find a community? And I didn't, you know, as an introvert, and just like curiosity, how many introverts do we have here? Yeah? Good number? Yes. It's good to whoop for introverts. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Deserve that. But introverts, you know, they like to meet people, but often one-on-one in smaller groups, right? And I wasn't like, you know, at big parties and big mixers and stuff like that, so it was like pretty isolating. But what's interesting to me is that as we've been having, like I started talking about loneliness toward the end of my first term. Oh. They really dug into it during my second term, producing a report on it. In between, I wrote a book on it, et cetera. And I keep waiting for it to become a topic that is sort of dull, that people are like, yeah, I already know about that. It's like no big deal, whatever, whatever. And that just still hasn't happened. Because I think it's still so deeply felt, but the cultural forces and technology forces around us that are isolating us are actually accelerating. And so I think this sense of isolation is increasing. You just take artificial intelligence, for example, and take social media. Take those two forces alone. Technology is not the only force that is driving loneliness and isolation. Just want to be very clear about that. We've been seeing diminished participation in the organizations that used to bring us together, like service organizations, recreational leagues, faith organizations. We've been seeing that decline for a half century now. And we also tend to go out less, right? And we move around a lot more, and we also change jobs. And all of that means that we leave communities behind, right? But technology has played its own role. Like it's made it less necessary for us to go to the store, the grocery store, the retail store, right? We can just get everything online. It's convenient, it's efficient, but there's a human cost as well. But the impact of social media on kids in particular has been really profound. And for the benefits that do exist, the harms are actually quite significant. And I remember in 2023, when I issued a Surgeon General's advisory on the impact of social media and youth mental health, there were parents, the reason I did that was not because I planned to for years and years. It was actually because the most common question I was getting from parents when I traveled was, is social media safe for my kids? That was the most common question. And I realized that if we can't provide some guidance to parents on that question, we got to ask ourselves, what are we really doing as public health and clinical leaders, right? And this is a place where I think, I especially want to talk about this because I think as clinicians, you have a really important role here. Because the feedback that I got, interestingly, when I was contemplating this report was from a number of folks who said, well, shouldn't we just wait until we have more research? Do we have even more certainty? Do we have like larger studies, et cetera? And I said, look, you don't want to make decisions and proclamations with no data. But at some point, something clinicians know well is that you have to combine the data you have with your best judgment in the middle of a crisis, and you got to make a decision. Right? If somebody's coding, like in the hospital, right? There's a code algorithm, it's evidence-based, you go through it. But then as all of us know from, perhaps early years in our training, or maybe even now, there are times you get to the end of the code algorithm and you still haven't been able to capture or regain a perfusing rhythm, right? You still don't have a pulse, you don't have a pressure. So what do? You don't wait 5 years for an RCT to be done and say, I'll come back to this patient, right? That would be absurd. You say, okay, now I need to fill the gap with my best judgment about what works. And as simple as that sounds, we actually failed to do that as a country when it came to social media's impact on kids. It had been going on for 20 years, right? And we just kept watching and watching as the stories piled up. And so there was enough data for us to understand two things, which was that there was certainly not enough evidence presented that social media was actually safe for kids. The evidence that we demand of safety of so many other products and medications that kids use, there was not all there for social media, even though far more kids used it than any other product. But the other challenge was that there were growing data points that were actually concerning for harm, right? And so, and particularly with regard to mental health. And so the reason I bring all of this up is because I don't want us to repeat the same mistakes with artificial intelligence, right? 75% of adolescents say that they've used AI chatbots. Many of them are using them as companions. 1 in 8 adolescents say that they're using these chatbots because they have no one else to talk to. 1 in 8, that's a lot. But many of these platforms, again, have not demonstrated safety, right? We are already starting to see on an anecdotal level harmful impacts on kids. And if we just wait for somebody somewhere to come up with all the data to know 100%, whether things are safe or not safe, we are going to do so at the expense of our collective mental health and well-being, and especially that of our kids. So this is a place where I think it's really important for our profession, our medical profession overall, particularly those who care deeply about mental health, to be proactive and to lead and drive public discussions and discussions with policymakers on this. Because what many of the tech companies did with the social media front is they shifted the burden to everyone else. Instead of saying, it's our responsibility to demonstrate our products are safe for kids, they said it's everyone else's responsibility to demonstrate beyond any shred of a doubt that our products are absolutely harmful to kids. Anything short of that, nothing to see here. And that's just unacceptable. And we are on track to see the same thing with AI, unless we demand something different. Now, I will just, in all honesty, just say this. Our policymakers at a federal level have failed in their responsibility to protect kids when it came to social media. And they're currently on the road to failing as well when it comes to protecting our kids from the harms of AI, right? And then we can talk about the reasons why that failure is there, but it has been a bipartisan failure. Even though there's bipartisan support for doing something, yet nothing ever seems to happen, right? And so the question is, where is the pressure going to come from for them to do something? Where is the pressure going to come from for the companies to do better? Who is going to speak up on behalf of the millions of parents out there who see their children struggling and don't know what to do? Who think that those struggles are purely a result of their failures as a parent, right? Well, I think that the people who stand up for those parents, for those kids, who push policymakers and technology companies to do the right things, those people should be us. Those people should be us.
I'm so glad you said that. That's so profound, the idea of both being evidence-driven and as professionals using our clinical judgment. Super proud to say that we just developed our first strategic plan in the past 10 years, and one of our priorities is making sure that we don't get caught flat-footed like we did with social media, and we're setting guidelines and frameworks under the leadership of John Torres at Harvard on AI. So we will be filling that gap, and we're very proud of that.
And I was very proud to work with APA when I was in government. APA was a great partner with us, along with other clinical organizations. And that matters too, because to me, it was a demonstration that when we actually do things together, we can make an impact. And one of the things that we're, I think, all thinking about now is, in an age of misinformation, reduced trust, how do we rebuild that trust? How do we recapture it? Well, one of the ways that you rebuild trust is you stand up for people during a time of crisis, right? People are in pain right now. Parents in particular do not know how to manage technology in their kids' lives. They're seeing their kids' mental health spiral, and they're not sure what to do about it. And parents, what I found that I was really surprised by, and that I learned firsthand than being a parent myself, was that parents talk about a lot of stuff with each other, but a lot of times what they don't talk about are the things that they worry are their biggest failures, right? So my phone would buzz 60 to 70 times a day with messages on the parents' text thread for my kids' 2 classes, right? My kids are in 2nd and 4th grade right now. About all kinds of things, coordinating around the festival over the weekend, about what kids are gonna wear for this day, or the teachers really off for enrichment day this day, what are people doing, all kinds of messages. You all know, you get these, you know what these are like. But I was really interested that there were almost no messages around how are you managing tech in your kids' lives? Screen time, iPads, requests for phone, getting a phone, requests for opening up an account on social media. How are you navigating this? No one was talking about that. Even though we knew privately that many families were actually struggling with screen time. And at times we would hear from the teachers that drop-off time in the morning was one of the most harrowing times of day, because child would be, this school staff member would open the door when the car pulled up, and they would see a child screaming because their parent was trying to take the device away from them in the car and send them off to school. And it was harrowing. And so we knew that there were struggles, but parents weren't talking about it. And I remember when we, in 2024, I issued a report on parental mental health and well-being, because I realized behind the youth mental health crisis was a parent's mental health crisis, right? And what was interesting is that, and whenever we would issue reports, I'd write op-eds to go along with them. And the op-ed that I wrote that time in the New York Times got shared in our parent group, it turned out. Not by me, but by some other parent, right? And so it generated this discussion. In that discussion, one parent spoke up and said, I got to tell you about this experience with my daughter, where I got her a phone. She's a little older. One of my other daughters, who's not in this class, she's in 6th or 7th grade. She wanted a phone. We got her a phone. And I put all the parental controls in place. And I thought I did a good job. And then I realized some days later, my daughter had installed a factory reset on the phone, and all my controls were gone. So she went and she had reset all the controls, said, you can't do that, and gave the phone to her daughter. And then she realized what her daughter was doing was downloading apps, hiding them under other apps, deleting them before she came home from school. So she had access to apps and had accounts that her mom didn't know about until it was too late. So her mom went through all of these iterations, and finally she said on the text thread, she said, the reason I'm telling all of you fellow parents this is because the only way I knew about what my kid was doing is that I'm a cybersecurity expert for the federal government. And she's like, but I'm presuming you all don't have this expertise, so this is what you're in for. So my only point in sharing this with you, my main point, is that parents need to talk about these things as well. So as we think as clinicians, what can we do to help people? I think our model has often been the one-on-one model. How do we help the patient in front of us? Which is always going to be the bedrock, in many ways, of providing care. And it's good. But I think increasingly we have to think about how do we bring people together in communities to have conversations among themselves as well. Like some of the experiences that we see in the clinical setting with group visits, for example, particularly around pregnancy, but now increasingly around diabetes, show that while many clinicians thought that those would be good ideas because they would be efficient ways to convey information to a group of patients from the clinician, one of the real benefits actually has been forming a community for patients where they can support each other, build friendships, and help take care of each other over time and feel less alone. That is one of the things I think we need to do, particularly with parents with other caregivers for kids, with people who are struggling with technology that they didn't grow up with, that they barely understand, that's changing, like it feels like on a daily basis. And if we're not together, and if we're not helping and supporting each other as we address this, it's going to be impossible. It's only going to compound what I sense as an extraordinary source of stress in parents' lives.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Yes. One of the things that you talked about was misinformation, and I'm going to expand that to misinformation, disinformation, malinformation even. How can physicians communicate in a way with the public that rebuilds that trust, rebuilds that credibility in a time when science is being challenged and otherized almost?
Yeah, I wish there was like a simple answer to this. I think the paths through which misinformation is flowing into our lives, and disinformation as well, have extraordinarily expanded and grown, in the last 4 or 5 years. And so there's a tsunami of misinformation out there, and especially with AI, it's very hard to tell what's real and what's not. We, even a few years ago, like in the throes of COVID, started to see scientific, peer-reviewed publications being posted on social media that were actually completely fabricated. They looked real. To your eye and my eye, they would look like a peer-reviewed publication. But everything was fabricated, all to try to make a point that somebody wanted to make for whatever reason it was: economic gain, influence, political gain, who knows what. And so, but what we also saw during the pandemic was interesting, which is people fundamentally have a need to trust. What's shifting is who they trust, what they trust, less trust in institutions, but people still trust the people they know. So we found even in the throes of COVID that when there was a lot of misinformation, that the majority of people still trusted their individual doctor, or the nurse who took care of their family, or maybe a Department of Public Health in their community if they knew it, if they had like a lot of interaction with it, if they'd gotten all their vaccines there, or if they'd gotten health advice there, or whatever it might be. And so the question, to me, what that helped me understand was that trust is fundamentally relational. If we want to build trust again, what we have to ask ourselves is, how do we go into communities and show up for people? This is different from showing up in the clinic one-on-one with a patient. The real question is, how do we go into communities, into churches and synagogues and mosques and temples, into schools and colleges and universities, and talk to people about health, right? During COVID, there were so many schools that wanted a doctor in their community to come and just speak at a town hall and answer some questions from parents. Because again, they didn't know who to trust, but they thought, well, if there's a doctor from our community, people might listen, and they were right. But we need to show up more proactively in those spaces, and we need our institutions, our academic institutions and our healthcare institutions, to actually support us in doing that. This is not about telling clinicians, hey, to add this other big chunk of work to your already overwhelmed life and go out and do it. This is a broader systems issue of saying, how can our institutions recognize what's needed from a health perspective and recognize that the scale of our problems won't be met if we confine clinicians to the exam room and to the treatment room alone, that we have to find our way into communities. Because the truth is, the best time to build trust is before the crisis comes. We learned that the hard way during COVID. But we also saw that in communities where people were familiar with the local doctor, with their Department of Public Health, because those folks who'd been showing up for them at schools and in workplaces, and they knew who they were, they had somebody they could trust when misinformation was swirling during COVID. So that's going to become all the more important going forward. And I think it impacts how we train clinicians as well. I do believe that the skills you have in interviewing a patient are going to be critical, will always be critical. But the skills you also have in communicating with a group in your community is also going to be just as important. And finally, it's just worth saying something that you know better than anyone, which is the most powerful way to tell somebody you respect them is to listen to them. Right? And this is one thing as clinicians overall, not psychiatrists per se, but overall as clinicians, you know, we go less than 60 seconds before we interrupt patients. A lot of patients feel like their doctor doesn't really listen to them well. But when you listen to somebody, just let them talk, you're saying, I respect you. What you are saying has value. And that's one of the most powerful ways you can start to build trust.
Thank you. Thank you. Shifting gears a bit to workplace mental health, something else that you've spoken loudly about and cogently about. How do we address workplace burnout for all of us, not just physicians, but all of us throughout society? It's a big issue.
Yeah.
We can't always meditate our way out of that. How do we address that from a systemic, structural standpoint?
Well, I think that you look at how a clinician burnout, which is an issue that's very concerning to me. It's really obviously very important to all of us. But it was one of the reasons we issued a report on this as well when I was in office, is that the rates of burnout are far higher, I think, than what the public understands. And the threat to emergency and routine care is far greater than what policymakers realize. I think a lot of times institutions look at the clinical burnout crisis, and they think, well, this is primarily about safety, it's about pay, and it's about administrative burden. And it's partly about those things. Those are important. I think what they miss sometimes is that it's also about agency. It's also about trust in your leaders to do the right thing to take care of you. And it's also about your sense of community. Do you have one or not? Because we know that after training, clinical work can be incredibly isolating. Right? You're on your own, making big decisions. You don't have anyone to lean on. It can be tough. And even if you're working in a clinic with other clinicians, everyone's like tunnel vision doing their own thing. It can be very isolating and lonely. So the question of how do we build a sense of connection and community among clinicians is essential to address burnout. How do we create a sense of agency so the clinicians feel they have some control over the work that they do? An institution that my wife used to work at, she's a clinician as well, she's an internist. They made a decision at one point when they had realized that patient satisfaction and even like staff satisfaction was not where it should be. They made a decision as a health system to give each person on the floor, maybe it was each nurse on the floor, or each pod, the ability, the discretion to issue a voucher to a patient if they needed it. It could be like to get a cab ride home. Because how many times do we know in the inpatient setting, the disposition gets held up because somebody doesn't have a ride home, right? Like the things that we know, the public will be shocked to understand that this is really what's like, holding people up from discharge, occupying beds, et cetera, but this is reality. They realized that made such a difference, not just to the hard outcome of getting patients where they needed to be quicker, but it gave the staff a sense of agency. Like, yeah, I can actually do something to solve the problems in front of me. And I felt when I was doing our work on burnout that lack of agency, that lack of self-efficacy was an important contributor to the burnout that so many people were experiencing. But the trusted leaders is also important alongside the community and the agency. People need to know that their leaders have their best interests at heart and are fighting for them. That is essential. And I worry in a system where we're hearing of too many health systems that are getting taken over by private equity ventures, by leaders who are trying to squeeze every ounce of profit out, even when it's coming at the expense of patient outcomes and clinician outcomes. There's no better way to destroy trust. So trust has to be earned from a leadership perspective. You gotta, I think about my residency training, why did we trust our residency program leaders? Because they showed up for us again and again and again. See, trust is not built with one event alone. And I think it is not entirely intuitive because what we hear about, the stories we see, the movies we watch, the books we read, are all about some major event that happened that rebuilt, that somehow made somebody their trusted figure. That kind of trust, quickly gained, is quickly lost. But the most robust trust happens through small moments of showing up over time, right? All those times our program directors slyly, quietly slipped us a meal voucher when we were working late because they wanted to make sure we had food. When they made sure that we got into a cab because we were too sleepy to drive home. When they came by at the wards at 10 p.m. just to check on us, to bring us some juice and some snacks because they knew that we were working hard. When they came in to just say, you know what, let me just take your pager so that you can be taken care of. I fell asleep my intern year on my oncology rotation on my glasses when I got home post-call one day and broke the stem, right? So, and I was like on onc going to like the pre-round at 4 in the morning, getting out at like 10 at night. There was like no time to go get your glasses fixed. So I did I taped it up. You guys know what this is like, right? And just tried to stick it on my face, but then the tape kept coming off and kept cutting my head. There was like blood on my head. And at one point during rounds, my attending was like, pulled me aside. He was like, what is going on? Like, you got this broken glass, got blood on your head. Like, what, this is like, you're gonna start scaring patients. What's happening? I said, do you need money to get glasses? I'm happy to loan you. I was like, I don't need money. Like, I just need time, you know? And he said, you know what? He's like, I'll hold your pager. Take care of yourself. It's okay. I'll hold your pager. As an intern, to have my attending say that to me, these are the small things you do over time that build trust. Look, I know that like our time is coming to a close, but a couple things I do want to tell you that are important. One is that I don't want you to ever let anyone lead you to believe that your well-being is less important than anyone else's. That because you took an oath to care for others, that caring for yourself somehow is less important or doesn't matter. It matters too. It matters for your patients, it matters for your families, it matters for you. And I think too often the well-being of clinicians has receded further and further down the priority list so that we feel guilty even taking care of ourselves. But this is also a time where we've got to take care of each other. The small things that we do to show up for each other, just checking on someone at the end of a long day, checking in on a colleague who you know has been struggling with a really tough patient, looking out for a colleague who's just lost a patient or lost a loved one. These are the small moments that remind us that we're not alone. The truth is we all need those people in our lives, those colleagues who show up for us in those ways. See, showing up doesn't have to be about the grand gestures. It's often about the small things. And I've learned this so many times in my life by going through hardship myself. Just last November, my wife was on a train coming to meet me and she was with our kids, and it was a Friday at like 6 p.m. and she gets this text notification on her phone. Alert, new update to your medical record. No one should ever get these, by the way. She checks it and it's alert saying, oh, your biopsy has come back and it's positive for invasive ductal carcinoma of the breast. I was on a plane somewhere over Montana at that time, making my way home. And when I got home, and she had to get this news all by herself on a train, trying to make sure that the kids who were 8 and 9 didn't see something was wrong and get scared. And that night, like when I got home, she told me the news, and we were just so distraught and just held each other trying to come to terms with what was happening. And 2 weeks after that, my mother was diagnosed with endometrial cancer. And 2 hours after my mother's diagnosis, my grandmother died in our home. And just like that, in a matter of a couple of weeks, like 3 women, 3 rocks in our family, all hit by these terrible circumstances. And what followed were really some of the most devastating, wrenching weeks and months for our family, a journey that still was, making our way through today. But what helped us get through that, what helped me get to a place where I could come here and just be with all of you today, were friends who showed up. It was my friend Sunny, who just decided to organize a group of 40 of our friends into a WhatsApp thread to make sure that people knew what was going on so they could send messages with no expectation of a reply, but just messages so we knew that we weren't alone. It was my friend Dave who decided one day just to drive down from New York to be with us for the weekend. And he cleaned, he cooked with his wife, he looked after our kids, and just so we could sit down and breathe. I remember the day my wife had to have her mastectomy. My friend Parag just showed up at the hospital waiting room with a bag of food. He fed me. He talked to me. And when he sensed I needed some time just for myself, he was just quiet. He just sat. Nobody asked him to show up. Because the truth is, in moments of crisis, people will often ask, what do you need? And that question comes from a place of deep love. But sometimes we don't know what we need because we're so overwhelmed. And that's how I felt. And in those moments, we need people who are just willing to show up. Because the truth is, you don't always need to know what to do and what to say. It's your presence alone that can help to heal. I think of this in the context of what's happening more broadly in our country and in the world. We're living through a time of deep pain. When I travel, the two most common things I sense among people are a sense of despair and disempowerment as they look at the challenges that are piling up in the world, and they ask themselves, do we really have the power to do anything about these challenges, to make life better for ourselves and for our kids? And they're not sure. Well, I've always believed that we find our hope not most reliably in programs or policies or politicians. We find hope most reliably in each other. And that is what I saw when I traveled the country as Surgeon General, is despite what I read about in the papers, about the acrimony, about the meanness, about the cruelty, that in individual communities, there were neighbors checking on other neighbors when they sensed that they needed help. There were moms and dads rushing to pick up kids who fell off the monkey bars on the playground, even though those kids weren't their own, because they cared about the community's kids. There were students who were recognizing that their peers were struggling with their mental health, with loneliness and isolation, and they were building programs, hope squads, as they call them in Lincoln, Nebraska, other programs all across the nation, to in their own way do what they could to help their peers. See, what we're dealing with right now as a country is much deeper than what you read about in the paper. It's a deeper spiritual crisis. It's a crisis literally of spirit, where we are asking fundamental questions about identity, about who are we. And when people look around them, they worry that who we are people who are cynical, who are cruel, and who only care about themselves. But most people know that the way they feel, the values they hold, and what they tend to see in the people who are close to them is the opposite of that. It's people who are kind, who are compassionate, and who are courageous. And those are the values that we need to amplify, to support, to speak up for in the public square. Those are the values that we need in our teachers, in our leaders in the workplace, in our leaders in our hospitals and health systems and clinics. These are the values we need in the leaders that we cast our ballot for and elect at state, local, and federal levels. Because values matter. It doesn't matter what somebody tells you their policy on taxes or healthcare or the economy or anything is, if their values aren't consistent with what you think we need to help our families and our countries grow. Because what I saw up close was that 95% of the decisions that leaders make, they make behind closed doors. You don't see those decisions being made. And the only thing guiding them in those moments are their values. So when I think about the road ahead for all of us, the most fundamental value that we have to anchor in and build our lives and our institutions and our country around is the core value of love. Love manifests as kindness and compassion, as generosity. But right now we have a world that's being driven by fear. And fear manifests as anger and insecurity and jealousy and rage. And that insecurity, that fear, has become one of the key drivers of what we read about and see on the news. But it is not who we are. And we only have to look at our children in their earliest years to know that that's the case. We don't come into the world angry and resentful and cynical and insecure. But as my son reminded me not too long ago, we come in as quite the opposite. See, the other day I was at the table with my kids, and I practice throwing stuff with my kids all the time, like balls, this, that, the other. And sometimes when they're not looking, I'll just toss a ball at them, just to test their reflexes. We can talk about my parenting decisions later. And this happened at night. We sat down at the table, and my daughter, who's very playful, all of a sudden tossed a tennis ball at me. And I instinctively reached out to catch it. Except I forgot in that moment that I had been struggling with a frozen shoulder for the last 6 months. And has anyone ever had a frozen shoulder here? Oh, I'm so sorry for you. Yeah. The one thing you're not supposed to make are sudden motions, right? And so, of course, I felt excruciating pain when I did that. And I was down on the floor on my knees, eyes closed, gripping my shoulder, just waiting for the pain to subside. And it was in that moment that I felt this small hand on my shoulder and this small head leaning against mine. And I opened my eyes, and it was my son. You see, nobody taught him at the age of 6 or 7 about the importance of being compassionate. He never went to sensitivity training. He was born with what all of us are born with, which is the instinct to reach out and care for one another, to respond when someone else is in pain. And that instinct is still within us. It may be buried under layers of disappointment, of frustration, of doubt and cynicism, but it is still there, ready to be awakened, especially when we see it in others. And that is what we are called to do now, is to be a beacon for those values, not only to be models for them, but to speak up for them, to support others who are living those values that are grounded in love. Because we sometimes in society think about love as something that's soft, but it couldn't be anything further from the truth. Anybody who's a parent or a grandparent or has children you love knows that that love enables you to do extraordinary things for your child, to stand in harm's way, because you know that your love for your child is more important than anything else. Love is what makes us strong. Love for each other, love for our country, love for the patients we care for, love for our kids. And so that is what we are called to remember. And this is what I try to remember too, and it's why when I travel, I always keep these socks with me, because these are the socks my kids wore, like when they were infants. And I travel with them in my suitcase, and I keep them in my pocket when I go to events, especially for those moments when I start to doubt, when I start to feel discouraged by what I'm seeing around me. And it reminds me that what's at stake is too important to give up. It's too important to be cynical. What's at stake is this. It's our children. It's future generations. It's our sense of integrity. And if there was ever a time when the world needed people of integrity and values to stand up and to be examples and to be leaders and to advocate for what we need in society, this would be that moment. And you would be those people. So this is something we've got to do together, because here's the truth, Marquita. The most important skills that all of us need to create the world that we want for ourselves and for future generations, the most important skills are the ones that we had long before we became clinicians. It's our ability to listen deeply with empathy, our ability to reach out to others with genuine kindness and compassion and help them feel seen. It's our ability to lead with love. And if we do that, then I have no doubt that we can make the future brighter, that we can build the world that our kids need. And then as we do that, others will join us. Because as my mentor, Rachel Remen, told me in medical school years ago when I was feeling discouraged, she said, when you stand in strength, you allow others to see you, to join you, and to find their strength as well. And that's my hope for what we can do together for our communities and for our country and for the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for showing up for us. Thank you for showing up for patients. Thank you for showing up for our nation.
Thank you.
We need your message. Thank you.
Thank you.